Hey everybody, Michael Fabiano here from Sports Illustrated Fantasy, and you know it's that time of the week. We're talking waiver wire, and we're going to talk waiver wire with our pal Jen Piacenti, who comes in to talk about some of the best free agents in fantasy football. And Jen, going into this week, there are actually a lot of really good potential players who could be on the waiver wire who could help folks not only get into the championship, potentially take home a title. Let's start off at the quarterback position with a player who I've been waiting to be freed for weeks now, and it looks like it's finally coming to fruition.
Yeah, you want to talk about potential league winners on the waiver wire? It could be Taysom Hill, who's taking first-team reps for New Orleans this week. He's almost certainly going to start on Thursday night, and it seems that that's the change that New Orleans needs to make. Now, if you recall, last season when Taysom Hill started in those 4 games, he had a floor of 18.5 fantasy points per game and 4 rushing touchdowns across those last 4. So this is somebody that you can put on your bench even if you don't start him right away, that can really give you good insurance down the stretch. And Fabs, as you've pointed out, there have not been true stud quarterbacks the last few weeks. In fact, across the past 2 weeks, only 2 quarterbacks have averaged more than 20 points per game. I mean, it's something crazy like that. So Taysom Hill is a guy you want, and you can even feel safe starting him this week, as unfortunately our Dallas Cowboys have allowed about 23 points per game to opposing quarterbacks. And I'm sorry, this may be a little bit of bad news for those coaches who have Alvin Kamara, but Taysom Hill is a guy you can't leave on your waiver wire. He's 94% available in leagues. And if you just need someone for this week, you need someone to fill in for Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Garoppolo is someone you could also take a look at. He's facing that Seattle team that just looks absolutely lost. They've allowed 274 passing yards per game this year, and double-digit fantasy points have been in store for all the quarterbacks that have been facing them. So Jimmy G is someone you could also start.
Jen also likes Tua Tagovailoa for the long term here, the Miami Dolphins quarterback. Let's move on to the running backs. And this is where you could potentially find a couple of league winners, right? Because we're in week 13 right now. Typically, there are not good running backs who are free agents, but because of injury, suddenly we've got at least 2 or 3 who could really help fantasy managers, not only this week, but in the coming weeks.
At least 2 or 3, and honestly, the article was full of running backs this week. I call it handcuff appreciation week. I mean, if you look down the list, all those guys you drafted in the first round, even Zeke Elliott, he could be limited this week. Alvin Kamara, limited. Now we know Dalvin Cook is going to be out for at least a couple weeks, so I want everyone to go look at their waiver wire for Alexander Mattison. Now you might think, no, Alexander Madison's definitely rostered. Check again. He's available in 50% of leagues, and we've seen what Mattison can do when he steps in for Dalvin Cook. In the 2 games where he stepped in for Dalvin Cook, he had 51 carries, 15 targets, 324 yards, and a touchdown. That's across 2 games. So we know he's a stud, but here's the best part of this. This week he's facing Detroit, and we all know how bad Detroit is. They've surrendered an average of 27 PPR points per game to opposing running backs. And you can even go further. Chuba Hubbard is still on the wire, but Jamaal Williams is someone you want to check out. Look, Jamaal Williams, again, facing a middling Minnesota Vikings defense. DeAndre Swift is day-to-day with a shoulder injury, but if you're Detroit, are you really going to run DeAndre Swift into the ground here? It's not worth it. I think they rest DeAndre Swift. They let Jamaal Williams have some of these carries. They were splitting 50-50 before DeAndre Swift left the game on Thursday. And by the way, interesting fact, Jamaal Williams yet to have an NFL fumble in his career.
So he's sure-handed, we know that, and he's going to get the lion's share of the touches, no pun intended there, against Minnesota, so he should be rostered in all leagues. You mentioned Chuba Hubbard. The Panthers are on a bye this week, but still go out and get him. 2 more running backs, both on the same team, Dontrell Hilliard, Deonta Foreman, also on a bye this week, but you can potentially pick them up and stash them on your bench. Let's move to the wide receiver position, and I want to start off with a particular Patriots wide receiver who not only is a friend of mine who I've played in fantasy football leagues with, but I talked about him on Sunday morning on SiriusXM as being that guy that when I need someone in a starting lineup position, I go to Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, and Kendrick Bourne has been in this list for a few weeks now, but this week he tops the list. You cannot let him remain 76% available. I luckily picked him up a few weeks ago, so I'm pretty happy about that. He's been providing a very solid fantasy floor. In fact, 2 weeks ago, he even rushed 3 times for 43 yards while adding 98 yards through the air. Well, on Sunday, he had another 2-touchdown game. He seems to be a favorite red zone target for Mac Jones, and this is a surging New England offense. Bourne has had 3 touchdowns across his past 3 games on the season, 5 touchdowns, that's second only to Hunter Henry. And another guy in deeper leagues you should definitely take a look for, Josh Reynolds. Listen, Reynolds is 100% available. At the beginning of this month, he was a healthy scratch. Well, now he's reconnected with Jared Goff. We saw him catch 3 of his 5 targets for 70 yards and a touchdown on Thursday. We know those two have chemistry, and listen, what do the Detroit Lions have? As we just said, they're even without DeAndre Swift probably. They are really beat up, but there's no reason that Josh Reynolds can't get some good attention. And like I said, he's available everywhere. And by the way, this week, facing a Vikings team that has allowed 250 passing yards per game and the most points to opposing wide receivers across the past 4.
Yeah, Reynolds was a popular DFS sleeper of mine on Turkey Day, and he certainly lived up to expectations. You also like Russell Gage and T.Y. Hilton. And you know why Jen likes T.Y. Hilton? Because he's playing the Texans this week, and he absolutely owns Houston. So T.Y., maybe you throw him in there for 1 week. Let's move on to the tight ends. And speaking of the Indianapolis Colts, you like Jack Doyle.
Jack Doyle led the Colts receivers on Sunday with 6 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown. And this week, he faces the Houston Texans. It's a very favorable matchup. They've allowed the 8th most points to opposing tight ends. And by the way, he has 3 touchdowns in his last 6 games. So he's clearly become one of Carson Wentz's favorite red zone targets. And also one more person to check for. If you have Darren Waller, or maybe even if you don't, keep an eye on the status for Darren Waller. He is unlikely to play this week, and Foster Moreau is someone available in 99% of leagues. You can plug him in. Last time he plugged in for Waller, he stepped up and was perfect, 6 for 6 for 60 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking for Foster Moreau in leagues where I have lost Darren Waller, who is week to week and unlikely to play against Washington, as Jen mentioned. For all of Jen Piacenti's great waiver wire suggestions, you can check it out on her column at si.com/fantasy. And of course, be sure to check out Sports Illustrated on YouTube. You can check out that channel, find more videos, waiver wire, start 'em and sit 'em. We've got it all. Check it out at Sports Illustrated's YouTube channel.